Hi, I'm James D'Amico, Santa's head elf for the Ivoryton Illuminations, and you are listening to ICRV Radio, the stream feeding the River Valley.
There you go, guys.
I love it. I'm going to be doing that in a second, too. Just for all you Connecticut River Valley listeners out there, I did a little prohibition thing. I stashed my bottle of booze behind the ICRV radio sign outside because earlier I was doing my post office run. So it was kind of in the spirit of the thing. We're talking about cocktail rings tonight. And the reason they're called cocktail rings, we're going to go back to the beginning, dates back to the Prohibition era, the Roaring 20s, when women were kind of declaring their independence. They were shedding their corsets. They were indulging in decadence in the speakeasies. And to show off that they were able to hold a drink in their hand, they started donning these large sparkly rings. And that's how they became called cocktail rings.
Very cool.
So it's kind of cool. It's kind of a statement of women's independence. So all you women who want to flaunt the fact that you're modern independent women, you got to put a cocktail ring on your hand now.
Are they back in vogue?
They have been for a while. When I did some research on this, supposedly they went out a little bit in the 60s. Huge in the 50s. Of course, they went out in the 40s because that was World War II and everyone was being very conservative. But they came back in the 50s with the cocktail parties and everybody being in everyone else's living rooms and going out. And then in the 60s, they said it downed a little bit, although some of the companies that I'm going to be talking about tonight produced some fabulous rings in the 60s. And then they came back in the 70s again, and they really have never died out since then. Some of the celebrities that are known for wearing them, like Elizabeth Taylor is a huge one.
Yeah.
In fact, when I went online, I found a couple of her rings that are in the 33 carat range.
Oh,
Gosh, that's
Nice.
enormous.
Yeah. If you measure in inches, it's like 1 3/4 inches, almost 2 inches across, which I said to Dave earlier, that's like a Snoop Dogg gangster ring. Kind of could cover like 2 fingers, basically. But anyway, there were a number of companies who made them. Our very own Napier, who was located here in Meriden, Connecticut, who we've talked about before. And I have 3 of them right here. They're all the same design, but different colors. I have
And there
one.
are several that are on our Facebook page, too, where you can check out the glitter.
Yes. Definitely open another tab on your computer screen and go to ICRV Radio's Facebook page. We have a bunch of them posted there. The 3 I have in my hand right now were made by Napier. They all have 2-tier construction. A lot of the cocktail rings had multi-tiers. In fact, Napier made one with 3 tiers that was just like this, but this is the 2-tier version. And I have it in clear, topaz brown, and then blue and green.
Oh, I love the contrast.
Yeah. And these are made with very narrow, what they call navettes, which is a marquee shape, but much slimmer than your average marquee shape. So most of the cocktail rings, of course, back in the Art Deco era, they were typically made with platinum, diamond, emeralds, and rubies, and also maybe with some carnelian and chrysoprase and some other semi-precious stones thrown in. But back then, they were the real deal. They were expensive, and only the most wealthy of the flappers had them on their hands. And typically, they were the ones who could afford to go into these very exclusive, hidden speakeasies.
yeah.
And typically, initially, a lot of the women drank champagne, and with the bubbles and everything, actually inspired a lot of the designs. A lot of the early Art Deco designs were sort of very bubbly looking for a reason. Another maker who we've talked about before, one of the top 3 makers of jewelry in the country, was Trifari. And Alfred Philippe, who was trained by Cartier and some of the fine couture houses of Europe, he immigrated over here to the United States and became the head designer for Tafari. And this one I'm holding is extremely wild, and it actually comes from their design line called Wild Thing. And it's a dragon with with the tongue sticking out and everything. He's got green glass.
Oh, that's no small ring right there.
No.
That goes the length of your finger, probably.
Yeah,
a
this
good
one.
inch plus.
This one is a good inch and a half, maybe an inch and 3/4. This is probably the size of the Victory Diamond, and his head and the front of his snout, where his little tongue is sticking out, is all pave set with clear rhinestones. And if you lift up his head as on a hinge, there's actually a working watch inside.
That's pretty cool.
Oh my gosh.
And it still works. This one is listed for, I think originally it was listed for $550. I think now I have it around $300. This is definitely a real collector's item. And I've worn it a few times here and there, and it certainly gets noticed. You can't help but notice this thing on your finger. Really impressive ring. And they made a whole line of these rings, dragons, rams, lions, leopards, all sort of jungle and mythical creatures. So pretty cool.
What do you think? Was there something of the day that prompted that kind of a style, you think?
Actually, it was an Asian influence with the dragons, and then that prompted jungle animals. Of course, in the 50s, with all the animal print clothing, the leopard print that Jackie O made famous, zebra print. All types of animal print faux furs and real furs, actually, that they were wearing back then, which is not PC now. But a lot of the animal furs, and of course the travel. People were traveling and going on safari. That started in the 20s, actually. So a lot of that influence is from people getting into, hey, what else is out there in the world beyond my country, and people were becoming very interested in other cultures and so on. So that was reflected in the jewelry, for sure. Here's another Napier. This one has kind of a nature theme and almost looks like an acorn or a lotus leaf. I'm not sure. And it has what's called a cupcake crystal. It comes to a point at the top, and then it's flat at the top.
What would a
really
ring,
flashy.
something like that, be that has such the large gem at the top and the smaller pave around the sides?
This one goes anywhere from $150 to $250.
And what about in the day?
Back in the day, this one actually dates to the late 60s. Probably sold for $10 to $15.
Oh man!
Yeah, so the appreciation of these suckers is huge.
And Gay, is this something that was marketed, bought, and sold? On every main street in the Northeast, or is this a New York thing? Is this a Boston thing?
It was definitely more cosmopolitan.
Yeah.
It started in the big cities, of course, New York, Los Angeles, very Hollywood kind of thing. During the mid-century, Hollywood glam craze, women like Marlene Dietrich, Joan Crawford. In fact, when they sold off Joan Crawford's costume jewelry collection, she had a number of cocktail rings in her repertoire. So it started there, and then it spread to the secondary big cities, and then out from there. I don't think it ever got to farm country.
Now these are, they're not hiding the fact that they're not like real gemstones.
No, and that's, initially, as I said, in the Art Deco period, it was, they were genuine stones. The only exception to that is the ring that Ibby has on.
It's really sparkly.
The Vaseline glass became very popular, and we started making cocktail rings out of it because it actually glows in ultraviolet light, and it's somewhat radioactive. That's why they don't make things out of Vaseline glass anymore. But
when you look into it, it just it's as if it just goes on forever. The way that things reflect back on each other, and it just like
the way
you're going into a never-ending
the way it's cut,
tunnel.
the depth, and and the nature of the glass makes that happen. And in fact, in the antiques world, when you're talking about glass kitchenware, glassware, refrigerator, dishes, pretty much every kind of glass and dinnerware that you can think of, Vaseline glass is huge. And in fact, a lot of people, to display it in their homes, are like setting up black lights, above the shelves so that, when you're looking at their collection, it's glowing. It's showing its radioactivity.
Hey, so a listener sent in a note saying, we understand how the name came about of a cocktail ring, but I mean, as you define a cocktail ring, is it the size? Is it the color? Is it just the fact that it's costume jewelry? Is that how you define it today, a cocktail ring?
A cocktail ring is defined by its larger size.
Okay.
And it can be fine jewelry or it can be costume jewelry. They both qualify as costume rings. And I have examples of both here. I was showing this one to Dave earlier. This is actually a reproduction of
I like that.
Art Deco cocktail ring. It's
classic looking.
It's all channel set. It's got baguettes around the middle. It's like an eternity ring. And then it has round chatons on the top and bottom. Gorgeous ring. The original one sold for about $500,000. This is the $150 version. Heavily platinum plated, and actually does have some real diamonds in it. But hell of a ring. And very indicative of, the majorly flashy stuff that came from the Art Deco area, because that's when women started stepping out and started, before then, women weren't supposed to be noticed. And they were bound by corsets, and they were kept in the house.
Yeah.
And with the dawn of the Roaring '20s, that all came to a screeching halt. And so this was kind of a, in your face. Kind of like, hey, we're out here and we're just going to be bling bling. And it was a flaunting, actually. Because they put them particularly on the rings that held their cocktail glass, as they wanted to show off the fact that, hey, I can do this. Even though I'm a woman, I'm here in a speakeasy that's illegal and I'm drinking.
Yeah. So if I'm a right-handed drinker, it's going on my right ring finger.
Exactly.
Got
And so it was a very bold statement. It was a declaration of women's newfound freedom, really. So it's a cool history, and the variety of cocktail rings is huge, from fine jewelry. If you look at the large auction houses with Christie's, Sotheby's, Bonhams, that's one of the major events of their calendar year is when they do auctions on cocktail rings. It is something that is just everlastingly popular. It never seems to go out of style. And in fact, the measure by which cocktail rings change, it's like it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. In the 80s, the cocktail ring really came back in style through the TV show Dynasty. If you remember, that was just, an over-the-top fashion statement show. Nolan Miller did all the designing of the dresses for that show, and boy, all the women were wearing the major cocktail rings on that show, and it really came back full force. Really? Yeah, so that was a major influence as well. Mad Men TV show, they wore cocktail rings. In fact, I remember when Janie Bryant was trying to buy some from me, but she couldn't afford the ones that I had.
Wow.
She didn't have the budget for my cocktail ring, so she had to go with reproductions because the real ones have just become too expensive, which is amazing when you think about a lot of these rings were priced, between, I'd say, $10, tops $30 back in the day, and now they're worth, $300 to $600 or more.
Wow.
So they're always a good investment.
Were they U.S. made, most of them?
Yeah. They're all made here in the U.S. In the 60s, they got a little funky. I have this one that really creeps people out. It's it actually has a doll's eye in the center of it. This one came from a family in Chicago who had a jewelry store They shut down in the 70s. Most of their stock was new, unused 60s stock. And I bought this off of somebody who bought it from the family. But it's a doll's eye that, opens and closes and has the eyelash. And I think I sold a couple of them last year for Halloween, but they're pretty freaky.
Yeah, that's
little creep. Some people are creeped out by it, or they think it's totally cool.
that's like something out of a Tim Burton movie.
Yeah, exactly. And then another company, Vendome, which was the high-end or couture line for Coro. One of the innovations that they made because cocktail rings are very top-heavy and they will tend to fall over on your finger. So Vendome patented a square band. And it actually slides in and out and can lock in on your finger so that heavy top-weighted ring. These are all
That's actually pretty
Vendomes.
brilliant.
This one has a huge top.
That thing's huge.
This one is called the Blooming Flower. And this one is actually, this flower one in particular has been on a number of Hollywood stylist sites listed at $800 or $900, which is kind of crazy. But
Okay, were we always talking about ring finger, or did we get into pinky rings,
pinky rings,
or middle finger,
Or middle
for
fingers.
that matter?
well, they weren't so bold in the Art Deco era as to wear it on their middle finger.
Not doing the middle finger. Yeah.
That was a little too bold a statement, but nowadays you can wear them.
Not the statement they were going for. Well, it was actually.
Cocktail ringers typically are worn on the three middle fingers. They're usually not worn on the pinky finger because that's a whole different subgenre of rings, the pinky ring. And you can wear them on the thumb too, because some of them are quite large and, it counterbalances the size of it if you wear it on your thumb. But pretty much the three middle fingers. And actually I'm trying to remember the celebrity's name. There was a celebrity who in particular wore rings on her middle finger. Actually, I think it was Madonna, who wore cocktail rings on her middle finger, and she would flip people the bling bling bird on purpose, which I think is kind of interesting. But anyway, so Vendome, and there are actually some other designers who purposely do the square band on their heavier rings, but that was started by the Vendome company. They actually, and there's a patent number on the inside of the band if you look at it under magnification. But and I particularly go after Vendome cocktail rings. I'm probably the largest seller of Vendome cocktail rings online.
Wow.
And have been for a while because I just constantly go after that designer. And they were the one designer that actually advertised their cocktail rings. Their ads, they had, I think, 5 different ads. They started making these rings in 1962, and they made them right through 1969. And that one ad that I sent you, Ibby, that I believe we posted, has a woman smoking.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that was another thing, which now, people are ashamed of, but back then women were proud of being able to smoke. That was another sign of showing their independence, and they would wear their cocktail rings when they smoked as well.
This from a listener: are the more unusual ones worth more money, like the doll's eye that you described before? Would that be necessarily worth more money because of how unusual it is?
Yeah, it does have some value. I mean, certainly. Back in the day, this was probably only sold for a couple bucks, and I've sold this for up to $60, which, percentage-wise, that's a major jump in price from a couple bucks to $60. It ranges from 40 to 60. But yeah, definitely the ones that are more unusual, more ostentatious, design. Also, the height of the ring sometimes helps determine the price if they have, multiple tiers or they really stick out three-dimensionally. This one that you wowed at was actually a line of birthday rings that Vendome did, and they had the color of the birthstone and rhinestone. This one was for December, for this month, actually. And it does have the original price tag on it, and it was marked as $10 back then.
Rhinestone is the burst. It's
It was actually blue. Is it blue zircon? Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, blue zircon was the birthstone for December. At least back then. I don't know. They keep changing them around.
Yeah.
I can't keep up with them. But some people call this one the clamshell, the way it's designed. So that one's kind of cool.
What strikes me about these rings that you're showing, the colors are so incredibly vibrant in the gems themselves. I mean, the purples, the blues, the greens, the yellow. I mean, they're so rich.
Yeah, and that's another thing I should say. The person who asked the question about cocktail rings have to include stones. They can't just be, gold or silver, although some may argue about that. But typically, cocktail rings are known for having either a lot of stones or, one big stone, but definitely have the bling factor going on. There's some sparkle. So that's how they were originally intended, was to draw attention to the cocktail and the 1920s flapper hand.
Now, did the men have a response to this from a jewelry point of view?
No, they just like looking at them. It's like looking at the women. Well, men actually, it was in the 20s that the gangsters started wearing the pinky rings, which their rings were adorned with diamonds and onyx, mainly were the two big stones for men, black or clear. And the signet ring was another thing that was very popular, that would have a carving in it, usually of something manly like a Roman soldier or their family crest, which could actually imprint a wax seal when they were sending their correspondence. But that was kind of a separate thing. And whereas women's cocktail rings were a statement of independence, the men wearing the pinky rings, that was a statement of power and intimidation. And it usually did indicate that somebody was in the mob or organized crime if they wore those pinky rings. And it was more so the Italians that did it. You didn't really see the Irish mob wearing pinky rings. It was definitely an Italian thing.
This listener from Wethersfield says, I need a size 10. Most women's rings are much smaller. Do you ever see cocktail rings in larger sizes?
Yes, I do. In fact, I don't have it with me now, but I have a one with jade and diamonds that is a size 10. And I find it harder to sell them because it's not a common size. Most of my sizes tend to be between 6 and 8. But a lot of the costume cocktail rings will adjust out to a larger size. I do occasionally see larger sizes, and sometimes I do stock them because there are women out there who are looking for the larger size. And some of the men's rings, some of the cocktail rings are actually unisex. And I have actually a lot of gay clients who buy them, particularly in California. I have another male clients who actually wear the cocktail rings. I'm not sure if they do the cross-dressing thing or what, but
Palm Springs, the West Coast capital for this type of thing?
Yeah, I would say so. The Hollywood, area in general. As I said, a lot of the celebrities are wearing them. I know one of the pictures I posted was of Angelina Jolie. Mm-hmm. Wearing a big ring. Jessica Alba, Queen Latifah are some big cocktail ring wearers. But yeah, it is very popular with the
Real Housewives of Beverly Hills.
Yeah.
Here's the kicker. I am really wondering, for example, if people have hats or they have gloves, is the ring driving the fashion, or is the fashion driving the ring, or both?
I think actually the cocktail ring kind of stands alone. It's not driven by anything. It's driving itself.
You mean? Do you mean that are people wearing it because I just want to wear that ring, or are they wearing it because they want to be in vogue?
I'm thinking, for example, the style, like the photograph. I'll put it on Facebook in a moment with the stylish hat and the ring and the glove, so forth. Do you think they start with the ring and then they look for the hat that matches it? Or is it one of those things where you've got the fashion, the clothing,
and Gay's going to say
looking for the ring that matches it?
The ring is the ring, right?
Yeah, I would say in that scenario they would probably start with the ring because that's the biggest statement, and then they build around it because everything else is secondary. to the very
You thinking about getting a ring?
prominent ring.
Keep my eyes open. Look at this one that she's got.
I just looked up birthstones, and one of the December birthstones also is turquoise, which
Oh yeah, yep. And that's and turquoise is not a bling blingy stone, so it's not one that you typically see in a cocktail ring. However, modern rules have pretty much everything has gone very lateral with cocktail rings, and it's kind of anything goes at this point in the cocktail ring industry. And whereas cocktail rings typically would have been anywhere from 1/2 inch to 1 inch, now has climbed over 3 inches. I had a huge stone. It literally was 2.5 inches across. It was an Australian rose quartz, and it was literally 1.5 inches tall. I mean, it was massive, and I had it made into a cocktail ring. Just because I could.
Just because.
And it was an experiment on my part, because I was like, okay, I want to see how far this cocktail thing ring goes. And sure enough, a woman from California bought it about a year later. I had it in my online shop, and it was massive. I couldn't wear it without it tipping over. And it wasn't until maybe 6 months later that I found out there's actually a product out there. It's sticky stuff. It's like a tape that you can put on the inside band of your cocktail ring so it won't swivel. So there's actually products out there that help you wear your cocktail rings. But
how many would you say with the hand during the day was the fashionable amount? 1 per finger or per hand, or 1 on each, or 2?
Well, in the 20s it was 1. They start out with 1. Nowadays you can see up to 2 or 3 on a finger. Sometimes they'll have them, or some women wear them literally on 10 fingers. I mean, it can get crazy.
I don't find that to be a good look.
Although, I'd say for the most part, most women stick with 1 or maybe 2, 1 on
Classic,
each hand.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because, the 1 ring makes a statement on its own. You don't need, a second one to,
right.
Over top the other one. It's a one-shot wow kind of deal. So, in the spirit of that,
There we go.
Oh boy!
I'm going to open the real stuff.
The real stuff.
It's festive here.
I have
at
a
Studio
cocktail
108.
ring on my hand, and I actually brought these classic glasses from the 1920s, and the stem on these glasses are of unclad.
Yeah, those are lovely. Those are
there we
great
go.
glasses. That is Art Deco, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
these are genuine Art Deco glasses. The glass part is actually a pale green, and the stem of the glass is a
Jump in there, Ibby.
I can
is
Look at
a
that.
woo.
I can hear the bubbles.
As a gorgeous nude figure, female figure.
That's very Gatsby-esque.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And these glasses, here you go, Dave. Yep. These glasses were made by Cambridge Glass, which was a very well-known company. In fact,
You have to clink.
dink. We're drinking.
Do it in front of.
I don't know if everybody heard that, but we're drinking Prosecco 90
Cheers.
plus.
Cheers to a good year of
To
Antiques Trails.
to female independence, to dropping the corset,
I'll drink to that.
to no longer being bound by all those social rules.
There you
Although
go.
I think some of them should come back. I think women should have a little more decorum in some areas.
Yeah, well, what's your favorite ring? My favorite, I'll just say the one with the watch in it. I find to be the most intriguing. I like that one.
Oh yeah, the wild thing ring
Yeah.
from 1969
I like
made by
that.
Trifari.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I tend to like the Vendome rings just because, I'm always drawn to those rings that were featured in ads. This is another one of their rings that they made with emerald cut stones, and they made them in every color that you can think of, in set in gold plate and silver plate. This one happens to be purple. They made one that's electric blue, light green, yellow, topaz brown. Pretty much every color you can think of. This one is a Hattie Carnegie, which is actually This one's kind of a wild one from the 50s. It's actually real parsley, and it was dipped in 14 karat gold.
Oh, wow.
So there's actually a real piece of parsley under here that's been, I don't know, fossilized. I don't know what you want to call it, but it's, this is an example of an extremely unique, conversation piece kind of cocktail ring. This one was from Trifari's, I think it was either 67 or 68, Garden of Eden design line, which was also designed by Alfred Philippe with the snake. And the snake has some pave set crystals and the emerald green glass cabochon eyes. There was a whole line of these serpent in the garden rings and bracelets and earrings dripping with jewels. They're quite opulent.
I think we should do a special edition of Fermented with not just talking about mixology and then the stories behind the drinks and the era, but then bring in the fashion.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wear the cocktail rings while we're drinking.
Don't you think?
Yeah, they do go hand in hand.
Hey, I just
No
want to
pun
pick up on a little bit of a business that we have. Do we have a winner from our last show?
Yes, we did. Gosh, what was her name? I believe I want to say her name was Holly, but I did give the name to Kathy Flood, who was our guest
On the Christmas Pin show.
tree pin guru, and she did send along the Zuzu tree, which was signed by the actress who played Zuzu on It's a Wonderful Life. It's called the It's a Wonderful Life tree, and it is on the cover. It has a little golden bell on the green enamel tree. That tree pin is on the cover of Kathy Flood's book, The Comprehensive Jewelry Guide to Christmas Tree Pins. And she's putting out the second volume pretty soon. I'm guessing it's going to come out next Christmas, but it's nearing the end of production, and that'll be coming out for the next holiday season. And during the show, she gave us a sneak peek of that book.
Yeah,
but,
very cool. Yeah, so be on the lookout for something in the mail to be sent out from. She's from the
St.
Midwest,
Louis.
right? She's from St. Louis.
Yeah,
exactly. Perfect. And then coming up in upcoming weeks?
Yeah, next week we are going to have Heidi Wilmot, who is the proprietor of Finders Keepers, one of the last vestiges of places where you can go and dig around and find treasure and actually buy something for 50 cents. I was there for her famous Saturday after Thanksgiving sale. I actually was one of the first people in line, of course. And there was a very big line of people waiting to come in, and she decorates her place, and she has all the vintage holiday accoutrements for sale. And I got a bunch of 1950s signed shiny bright ornaments. The typical ones that are sort of teardrop shaped and have indents in them and that sort of thing. And I think actually I got a Napier faux pearl bubble charm bracelet there as well. But I always love it when I go to Heidi's because I'll go up to the register and I'll be like, how much is this? She's like, 50 cents. It's like nobody says that anymore. It's just awesome. So yeah, she will be our guest next week. And then in January, I am hoping to have Tom Perry of Deep River for our first of the month appraisal show.
Perfect.
So I'm looking forward to that. And so, ladies, go out and get your cocktail rings, raise your glasses. It's a perfect thing to wear for New Year's, by the way.
Perfect. And in case they're doing a little shopping, they can shop with you at what destination?
Yes, they can shop at Vintage Under the Sea on Etsy.com.
Hey, this is our first live 5 o'clock Wednesday show, so we're starting something fresh here. Look for it on the homepage, repeated through the course of the week and the weekend. But if you want to come and join our studio audience, sit around the round table, it's 5 o'clock on Wednesdays. Hey, Gay, thanks so much for Antique Trail.
Thank you, and thank everybody for their questions.